But yeah, that's what this book is about, in large part. This man's weaponized psychic penis. Better than food, man. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. Pretty good. Today is the most requested review on the channel, Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. It has taken a very long time because Gravity's Rainbow takes a very, very long time to read. This version is 776 pages long. It's one of the densest things you'll ever come across, of course. I mean, you've heard about it 1,000 times. But for those of you who aren't already aware, as many of you have been aware or have attempted this beast yourselves, it's almost a rite of passage among online literary snobs. You have to read the trifecta, what is it, Joyce's Ulysses, Gravity's Rainbow by Pynchon, and Infinite Jest by Wallace, before anybody will take you seriously on 4chan or whatever. This is a very famous, influential postmodern novel, probably the post-war postmodern novel, written by the notoriously reclusive American author Thomas Pynchon, who is still with us and is kind of battling Cormac McCarthy in my head for the spot as the greatest living American writer. Pynchon was in the Navy, studied at Cornell under Nabokov, and also worked at Boeing in Seattle. All of these things are immediately evident when reading Gravity's Rainbow. Very little else is known about him. He puts a high value on his privacy, and honestly, he's a genius simply for that decision alone, I think personally. So this is a disjointed, psychedelic, experimental, strange, sometimes stream of conscious, sometimes not, sometimes easy, sometimes outrageously difficult, cataclysmic magnum opus of a novel. Now, of course, what everybody started off with regarding this novel is its complex, obtuse difficulty, its impenetrability, and the total and absolute impossibility of getting it all in the first read. Sure, that's true, but I would like to highlight something that I feel is of crucial importance. This is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever read. I mean, laugh out loud, perfect tempo humor. It is just hysterical. I mean, I don't think, like, jokes in books, like, often I feel just, like, don't work, but I mean, like, he really has, whatever he was on, I don't know, he was able to kind of, like, decipher the rhythm of his prose perfectly and just, like, drops these one-liners that are just, like, amazing. What's really missing from the conversations I see on YouTube is really just, like, the sophistication of the humor, which is not necessarily to say that it's, like, super, it's not always super intelligent. In fact, the idea is that, the sophistication comes from his juxtaposition of the high and low, like I was just talking about with Babbitts. But I mean, he's making, outrageously crass and vulgar jokes while doing it in like the smartest way possible, which just accentuates its hilarity. It's really perfect. I don't know if I can totally explain why, because I think that's the component that illustrates Pynchon's genius. His ability to navigate the spectrum of human emotion and experience, switching from one to the other in a way that's almost like dream logic. So what's the story about, right? What is the basic story? In the simplest of terms, it's a story that takes place in the last months of World War II, combining many narratives that all revolve around the V-2 rocket. I believe all of the stories revolve around or are in some way related to this particular rocket with the serial number 00000. The main-ish protagonist, as there are about 400 characters or so, is a bumbling all-American Joe named Tyrone Slothrop. All of Pynchon's characters are given bizarre, kind of grotesque names, who discovers he's been programmed in a Pavlovian manner to become sexually aroused by the German V-2 rocket. Right. Which is what the Germans were hurling over the English Channel to hit London, seemingly at random. So when Tyrone was an infant, he was sold off to this scientist at Harvard to be experimented on. Maybe. Though I should add, finally, it's all undetermined, inconclusive, like everything else in the book. Because one of the major themes of the book is, like everybody says, paranoia. Thinking things are connected when they may or may not be at all. Now, regarding those rockets and where they hit in London, I said seemingly at random because something interesting shows up on the Poisson distribution, which is this statistical probability measurement regarding events, I think. I'm not a math person. You see, Slothrop's sexual adventures, his flings, the women he has sex with in London, seem to correlate exactly with the impact locations of the V-2 rocket. Everywhere he bangs someone, several days later, that's where the rocket hits. And one thing my wife brought up was, wouldn't he get erections after the rocket hits? And it's a good question. I don't know about that. But yeah, that's what this book is about, in large part, this man's weaponized psychic penis. That's why everybody wants to get Slothrop, or get to him, including this organization of psychics. And he's sort of running around all over war-torn Europe, trying to figure out if he's just paranoid. A frequent theme in Pynchon's writings, I'm sure you've heard. Or if indeed they are out to get him, and they is not clear. It is not clear who they are. Is everything actually as connected as it seems? Is everything meaningful, or nothing? Or both? Meanwhile, you have a subplot involving two half-brothers kind of associated with the rocket. Oberst Enzian, a man from the African Herero tribe, which was a tribe that suffered genocide at the hands of the Germans in German-occupied Africa, which is now Namibia, I think. Really, really horrible, true story. Who is the leader of the Schwarzkommando, a group of Herero rocket technicians building the rocket, the special one with all zeros, for the antagonist of the book, who is an SS officer with the codename Blissero, which means death, and who is also, at one point at least, Enzian's lover. And then Enzian's Russian half-brother, Colonel Vaslav Chicherin, who is sent on a mission to destroy him and the Schwarzkommando. And that's just bare bones. And then all kinds of stories and references of the most bizarre variety. Frequently it turns into a musical, with songs written and sung by characters. 1940s goofy Americana military macho humor. It's a giant glorious mess. What can I say? It's kind of perfect. And at first it might be terrible, but then you just submit or something. But then there are just these magnificent paragraphs that allow you to experience things you've known and felt, but have never been able to articulate yourself. And that's the sure sign of a brilliant novel for me. There's just some of the best things I've ever read in that book. This happens when he's in Nice. I just love this. I thought it touched something that I've actually experienced before, and I don't know, you know, it's intangible really. It's something I can't really describe, but I've felt it, and it just kind of stopped me dead in my reading tracks, so to speak, and I was just like, man, it's powerful. Just for the knife edge, here in the Rue Rosini, there comes to Slothrop the best feeling dusk in a foreign city can bring. Just where the sky's light balances the electric lamplight in the street, just before the first star, some promise of events without cause, surprises, a direction at right angles to every direction his life has been able to find up till now. I just thought that was brilliant. It's not one of the more famous passages in the book, but it's one that just hit me personally. This is the only book that correctly reaches, coalesces, and kind of assimilates the absurdity of us having created weapons capable of absolutely destroying ourselves. Like, we forget on a day-to-day basis that that's a possibility, right? Out of necessity too, just so we can function, I think, and not kind of collapse in a nervous breakdown of anxiety. And so what could it be other than the love of death itself? A death drive so strong that men will sacrifice their entire lives into projects constructing the ultimate vehicle of annihilation, our annihilation. You know, there never was a Dr. Jamf, opines world-renowned analyst Mickey Vookstree. Jamf was only a fiction, to help him explain what he felt so terribly, so immediately in his genitals, for those rockets each time exploding in the sky. To help him deny what he could not possibly admit, that he might be in love, in sexual love, with his and his race's death. Dr. Jamf was the evil scientist who experimented on Slothrop. Mixed in the tapestry are commentaries on war, power structures, racism, everything. It's really an enormous, all-encompassing work. I've never really read anything quite like it in my life. Not Infinite Jest, not The Recognitions by Gaddis. None of this comes close. I mean, I mean, he wrote it like in his 30s too. It's insane. It's amazing. He also wrote V. V was his first novel, and I think that was in his mid-20s. And I think there are some recurring characters. I haven't read V. This was the first Pynchon I've finished. And oh boy. The absurd infernal carnival of that era in World War II, as it's ending, kind of, the last months, has never been illustrated in more of a nihilistic, fall of Rome, jovial Broadway musical fashion. It sounds like a contradiction because it is, of course. It's bonkers. Yes, it's certainly an anti-war novel, but how it's anti-war is what's compelling to me. What it reveals about the war, which is still really like the big event in our recent history, unquestionably. Mankind's war lust, sort of. Its infatuation with empire. And of course its detrimental effects on little me and you. This is like Dr. Strangelove combined with Fellini, metaphysical spirituality, Freud, mathematics, dick jokes, tons of them, and show tunes. It's my idea of a good time. Throughout the entire book, you'll either be tearing your hair out in frustration, laughing your ass off, or throwing up. The scene with the trained octopus named Grigori attacking Katya and Slothrop saves her because Teddy Bloat just happens to have a crab nearby to lure the octopus away. Replying to Slothrop when he inquires where he got the crab, "I found it," is hysterical. It's pure Monty Python. It reaches both heights and depths previously not thought possible. It's really funny. There are scenes of graphic description that rival the Marquis de Sade in their ability to induce nausea. Coprophagia, shit-eating, castration, every kind of sexual deviance you can imagine. But I mean, if you're taking this on, I think you know what you're getting into and you can handle it. You know, be an adult. But yeah, the dominatrix scene with Katya, Jesus. Page 238. It cost this book the Pulitzer in 1974, I think. Gravity's Rainbow was chosen to win the prize, but then it was revoked because of that scene, which I love and which I imagine Pynchon was not unentertained by either. Because of that, nobody won the prize that year. Even the beginning with this onslaught of Pirate Prentice's banana-based dishes was just absolutely hideous. Totally put me off of reading the book the first time. I was just like, nah, not in the mood. But then here I am, calling it like a work of genius, which it is. I mean, it doesn't matter if I like it or not. This book is, it really just doesn't, it doesn't matter. If at first you're put off, just read the damn thing. It didn't really click for me until page 158 or so. It took quite a while. I really hated it before then. I really just couldn't stand it. Thought it was just like super verbose and just really just god awful to read. And then, I don't know, something happens and you just sort of slip into it. Gravity's Rainbow refers to the parabolic arc of the V2 rocket. I got that from this fellow John David Ebert's video on YouTube, which was very, very helpful, very concise. A phenomenally straightforward explanation of Pynchon's history in the book. I've linked to it below. I highly recommend you check it out. It's intentionally disorienting and confusing in a way that I feel I've heard some people say is a kind of fuck you, you're not smart enough to get this sort of attack almost on the reader. I disagree. In my opinion, because of the humor, because of the goofy silliness, I'm going to choose to think the best of Pynchon. I'm going to choose to think that, to think that he's not just writing this to fuck with us. At least not in a way that is intentionally kind of like revenge on the reader. Not totally, at least. What I'm going to assume to think is that, and I think we ought to do this for all writers, usually, unless it's blatantly obvious, but I'm going to choose to assume to think that he is saying, yeah, you're smart enough to get it. Now check this out. And then he writes something absurdly perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong with challenging the reader, because there is, in fact, somebody out there who is smart enough to get it and appreciate it. Many people, in fact. And, a lot of satisfaction is gained when you do figure out what the fuck is going on. Maybe not on the first read, but eventually, right? And I think Pynchon knows that. So he's not giving it to us all at once. If at first you don't understand it, like most of us I'd wager, try again with some supplementary material. It's worth it. And it's fun. I'm not somebody who needs to be catered to, by the author. I'd rather be challenged and learn something about the world around me, or the world that has come before me, and also discover in the process the limits of my comprehension. That's kind of, why we're reading literature, right? Right? Well, that's the reason I'm reading books. So better than food, without question. Better than big yellow banana breakfasts. So what did I dislike, if anything? In the beginning, almost everything, and in the end, nothing. It's a very smart mystery comedy tragedy for very smart people. I think this can come off as try hard or high. Very, very, very high. I honestly have no idea what he was on, if anything. It's going to rub some people the wrong way. I took it in increments of approximately 5 pages a day over the last year or so. Maybe less, I'm not sure. It was about all I could stand. I will say that, ironically, despite the enormity of the book, I never felt like I really knew any of the characters at all. Rather, it was the author that I got to know the most. What's amazing is Pynchon's ability to pack in so much information and suggest so many different narratives, all going on at the same time. The sheer amount of stories you have in this book is outrageous. On almost every page, it seems you have like a plot for a novel. Yeah, if you actually want to just see something that is in fact genius, indisputably, this is it. I've decided that while one could write him off as impenetrable, that's got to be a pun somewhere in here, or verbose, or disgusting, or goofy. While he may be all of these things in abundance, and he is, you know, nevertheless, it would be an enormous mistake just to write him off. No matter what, it is always going to be your loss. This is an unbelievably complex work, really difficult to just comprehend somebody in their 30s doing it. Just the nuance and depth balanced with the oddball humor and references really just suggests someone with several more decades of experience under their belt. It's not my favorite novel, but it's one of the best I've ever read. And maybe I'll do another update on what I've discovered from it down the road. But for now, I know the Bookchemist has some videos on it. He did I think he did like a regular review, and then he did like a kind of read through thing part by part, so you might find that helpful. The Bookworm also had some good stuff to say on it, and I'll link those videos below. So you should read it. Anyone who wants to read one of the greatest literary accomplishments in history. If you're a fan of Joyce or Wallace or the Recognitions by William Gaddis, large, dense, time-consuming but immensely rewarding pieces of literature, I suggest you highly prioritize this one. A kind fan of the show named Casey sent me this book by an illustrator and a porn star named Zak Smith, and this is pictures showing what happens on each page of Thomas Pynchon's novel Gravity's Rainbow, which is pretty rad. Thanks a bunch, Casey. Really appreciate it. It's pretty cool. It's just like these kind of sketches, right? You know, these sort of like ink drawings. I thought it was pretty awesome. I don't know if it's every single page, but there are tons of illustrations. I think that would be the infamous banana breakfast, which one commenter on some video, I don't know where it was, he said it was sort of like the Bubba's monologue from Forrest Gump, where he's talking about the shrimp. Yeah, it's kind of like that, but just really grotesque. If you're interested in picking this up, I put a link below as well. You're really only going to get a couple of these reading experiences in a lifetime. Choice is yours, but I would say you gotta read this one. Coffee time. Thanks a bunch to all the patrons, and best of luck. Okay, here we go. Lachlan S. Thanks a bunch, Lachlan. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon, plus some delicious coffee. Cheers. Hope you love them both. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. And always remember, bring a book wherever you go. All right, take care of yourselves. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.